Why is Norway growing to be the richest nation in the world? Norway's massive land size of 385,000 square kilometers, which is 464 times larger than Singapore and 140 times larger than Hong Kong, belies its small population. Because of this, Norway has the lowest population density of any country in mainland continental Europe, making it one of the most empty and sparsely populated countries in the world. The majority of Norway's northern region is arid, frigid, and mountainous, with a brief growth season. The percentage of Norway's land deemed suitable for agriculture is just 2.2%, which is similar to Yemen's percentage. Establishing large, integrated, and efficient farms in Norway's south is challenging due to limited arable land scattered across small valleys. In contrast, American farms with an average size over 8 times larger are more connected and productive. Yet, against the odds, Norway is emerging as the world's wealthiest nation. Here's why. Before we proceed, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification icon in order to stay connected. You can support for free by sharing our content to a wider audience, and don't forget to drop your thoughts and opinion in the comments section below. Moving forward, Norway's history and trade challenges are influenced by its geographical features, including its second longest coastline in Europe and its rich oil industry. The country's marine culture has facilitated quick sea travel between settlements. Due to the accessibility of its forests, Norway dominates Europe's lumber sector. Before railways, timber from Norway's interior was easily transported via rivers to markets. Norway, Europe's lumber capital, has a rich maritime heritage and a decentralized capitalist class. Small population clusters build ships, leading to wealth distribution and a vast, centralized class, unlike France and Britain. Cooperatives in the fields of banking, fishing, forestry, maritime insurance, and agriculture have dominated the nation's economy. Norway outperformed most of Eastern Europe by the 1850s, with a GDP per capita above that of Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. It had even exceeded Italy's by 1900. Norway was the richest nation in Europe overall by 1938, with a GDP per capita that was higher than that of Germany, France, and the UK. The development of hydroelectric dams and contemporary sophisticated water turbines transformed Norway's spatial possibilities. Almost all of the area is covered in rivers, which are fed by winds that are mostly from the west. These winds provide a lot of precipitation and kinetic energy, which may be used to power turbines to create electricity. Unlocking its potential, Norway has permitted foreign businesses with more experience to construct contemporary hydroelectric dams since 1905. Currently, 838 smaller and 84 major hydropower stations with capacity larger than 10 megawatts provide an impressive 95% of Norway's total electricity needs. However, Norway's approach to the oil and gas business was impacted by the early 20th century dominance of huge foreign companies in the hydropower industry. Norway created regulations that foreign businesses looking to invest in Norwegian hydropower had to abide by in order to maintain its own sovereignty over its resources. As such, Norway is a wealthy, highly industrialized, democratic, and low-corruption state. Over 90% of its hydro capacity is held by the state. Interest in Norway's prospective offshore gas and oil resources started to increase in the late 1950s. The country's potential for oil and gas production was nevertheless widely disbelieved, especially in the shallow, underwater portion of the European continental shelf that lies beneath the North Sea. The Graden gas field, a significant natural gas finding in the northern Netherlands in 1959, spurred interest in venturing farther afield in the uncharted North Sea. The Norwegian government received an application from American petroleum firm Phillips in 1962 to conduct an exploration for oil and gas resources in their portion of the North Sea. Norway benefited from the shifting median line boundary when the UK government decided to split the continental shelf under the North Sea according to the median line distance. Boulder Field produced the first oil in 1967, although at the time it was not thought to be commercially feasible. Only in the 1990s did Boulder start to operate. One of the world's biggest offshore oil fields, the Ekofisk field, was found by Phillips in 1969. Major finds were made at fields like Stratford, Osberg, Kfax, and Troll around the Norwegian continental shelf after production started in 1971. Norway's hydro business lessons led to the creation of Statoil, a state-owned enterprise, and the formation of Econo, the leading undersea oil and gas infrastructure provider. Norway now holds the greatest oil and gas reserves in Europe and ranks 21st globally, thanks to its close proximity to the European Union market. The European Union has historically relied on gas and oil imports, with natural gas being more costly and challenging to transport and export. Major pipelines were built from Norway, the Soviet Union, Algeria, the Netherlands, and Russia. Norway built 11 underwater gas pipelines by 2021 that connect its gas resources to European consumers directly. For the first time, Norway's gas production surpassed that of the EU's oil production by 2010, and by 2021, it ranked as the second largest supplier of natural gas to the EU. By 2021, Norway had transformed into a petro-state, with gas and oil accounting for 51% of the country's total value of exports and about 21% of its GDP. In sharp contrast to nations like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia, and Venezuela, Norway stands out as the most democratic, free, and egalitarian civilization on the planet. The nation's position as a petrostate has been influenced by its forward-thinking policies and geographical history. It has a long history of collectively owning natural resources and a stable, functional democracy. Using authoritarian monarchy and centralized controls, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia, the Soviet Union, and the current Putin dictatorship have all discovered oil wealth. Norway was better equipped than most countries to deal with the rapid flood of oil and gas revenue because of its tiny population. But Norway's oil-dependent economy first became monolithic and reliant on gas and oil. The oil fund, created in 1990 after the 1980s recession, invests excess taxes and earnings from Equinor, Norway's state-owned oil corporation, to fund future generations following the oil price crash in 1986. With net assets of more than $1.2 trillion, the Norwegian Oil Fund is currently the biggest sovereign wealth fund globally. With over 9,000 publicly traded businesses' shares valued at over 1.5%, it is the largest investor in the world's stock market. Even though Norway's economy makes up only 0.5% of the world economy, each Norwegian person who chooses to cash out the fund will likely receive about $275,000. Norway is the 13th and 9th largest producer of oil and gas in the world, with the 20th and 21st highest proven reserves of both. Nonetheless, other nations have significantly larger reserves and output of oil and gas than Norway does. Norway is currently the 8th biggest oil exporter in the world, despite having the 20th greatest reserves and the 13th largest oil production. Even though Kuwait is in 7th place and has 1.5 times more oil reserves and 50% more oil output, it is rapidly catching up to the country. Norway is the 4th largest natural gas exporter in the world, trailing only the United States, Russia, and Qatar. These strategic advantages, her tight ties to the European Union, its small population, and its painstakingly planned policies, have been the driving force behind Norway's rise in the field of renewable energy. By capitalizing on these advantages, Norway is able to satisfy an astounding 95% of its electricity requirements through the utilization of renewable hydropower. The strategic management of hydro and wind resources, which are generally preserved within Norway's boundaries but are given abundantly to the market in the European Union, is what genuinely distinguishes Norway from other countries. This strategy not only ensures that Norway's electric grid is powered entirely by renewable energy generated within the country, but it also establishes Norway as a competitive competitor in the energy landscape of Europe. Because of its own 21st century worldview, Norway is completely self-sufficient in terms of energy and is able to sell and export practically all of its gas and oil. Despite having relatively low worldwide oil and gas reserves, Norway has developed as one of the most powerful and influential states in Europe as a result of this strategy. This is due to the fact that Norway's production levels and oil and gas reserves account for a bigger share of the total exports of the globe. Oil and gas exports to the European Union have surged as a result of Russia's invasion, making Norway the primary supplier to the EU. In the year 2022, the income reached $12.3 billion. The wind potential and untapped reserves of Norway are being investigated. In 2012, Norway made the discovery of the largest phosphate reserve in the world, which contains 70 billion tons of phosphate. This resulted in the world's phosphate reserves being increased by a factor of 2, making it possible for the nation to fulfill the phosphate requirements of the world for the next half-century. Significant quantities of metals such as titanium and vanadium, both of which are now produced in China, were also found in the discovery. In the event that Norway is successful, it has the ability to deliver strategic independence from China, becoming the primary energy supplier in Europe, potentially growing its sovereign wealth fund and granting tax benefits. And that concludes this chapter. You can support for free by sharing our content to a wider audience, and don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, kindly remember to like, subscribe, share, and turn on the bell notification icon in order to stay connected. Thanks for watching. See you in the next